Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to note we have an interpretation service for this meeting. The interpreter this evening is Mrs. Villa Grania. And could you raise your hand? She's in the back. Please ask her for listening device if you would like interpretation services. Antes de llamar a la Junta a orden, me gustaría notar que contamos con servicios de interpretación para esta Junta. Y la señora Villagrana está atrás. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting of January 17th, 2023. Madam Clerk, could you please make an announcement accessing the meeting and call the roll?
In order to participate in the City Council meeting virtually, please register to speak using the link on the agenda under public comment or call 1-669-900-9128 and use webinar ID 857-8775-1576. To raise your hand to speak on a particular agenda item, please use the raise hand button on the Zoom meeting portal. If you're using a phone, please press star 9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. Press star 6 to unmute your phone. And with that, I'll call the roll. Councilmember Cordero?
Here.
Councilmember Escobedo?
Here.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez?
Here.
And Councilmember Soto?
Here.
And Mayor Patino.
Here. I would like to call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting of January 17th, 2023. Madam Clerk, you've made the announcement and have called the roll. Now, Mr. Watson, would you like to give a summary of your or closed session report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. During the closed session, there was discussions with the agency negotiator regarding price and terms of potential deal points, and there's no further report to be made.
Thank you. So before we get started, I want everyone to know we're going to move item 6A, which is the Chapel Street Plaza naming, up to the first item on tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider adding the name Teresa Machado to the resource list from which city facilities are named and designating Chapel Street Plaza as Teresa Machado Plaza.
Staff report is to be made by Director of Recreation and Parks, Mr. Posada.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really with great pleasure that I bring this item to you. The Council has a standing process of naming facilities. The process requires us to bring an item forward to you, adding the name of an individual who has demonstrated really a lifelong contribution to the community. Tonight we're bringing forward Teresa Machado Rayburn to you as a candidate to be added to the list of resources of names to then be named the new plaza at Chapel Street to be named in her honor. Very quickly, I know it's in your staff report, but I feel it's important for the public tonight to kind of hear things. Teresa has been an employee with the City of Santa Maria since 1979. Over the 39 years that she worked for the city, she worked in various departments, including Recreation and Parks, the City Manager's Office, the Utilities Department, and returned to Recreation and Parks just before her retirement. She served as the Recreation Division Manager for a number of years. She brought many events to the community. Most notably is the red, white, and blue All-America City logo you see. Teresa was a key member in the team that put together the effort to go back to compete with in the league, the National Civic League's competition. Herself and Phyllis Rodenberger were kind of the key drivers behind that. Teresa came back, founded many local programs for our youth, creating things like our Dia de los Muertos event that happens at the Veterans Memorial every year, our Safe and Strong program, our youth after school program in the city park system, just a lifelong commitment to Santa Maria. I've had the pleasure of working with Teresa since I came to the city, so a long time ago. We'll just leave it at that. But Teresa has always been an enthusiastic member of the staff, always coming up with great ideas. Just a great person to know. And so I'm very happy to bring this item forward to you and recommend that we look at naming this plaza after Ms. Rayburn Machado.
Thank you. And Courtney, did you want to say a few words?
Sure.
Okay, you can go right up to the podium there. And this is Courtney Rayburn Trump with Teresa and Steve Rayburn.
Good evening, everyone. I would just like to thank the city council as well as the city for this recognition for my mom. She worked many years for the city and was very dedicated to her career. She loved working with the city and all of the people that she worked with. So we are very honored and thankful for your consideration. I would just like to thank some of the family that's here today. I'm her daughter, Courtney Rayburn, or Trump as my married name. My husband is here, Matthew Trump, and my daughter, that's the one that's yelling. And then standing here with my mom is my brother, Stevie Rayburn. This is my mom, for those of you that don't know her. And then we have her caretakers here in the front corner, which is Lupe and Caroline, who have done a lot for her. In the second row, her brother and sister-in-law, Barbara and Frankie Machado, and her two nieces, Debbie and Jeanette, as well as my in-laws, Matt and Clarissa Trump. So again, we are just really honored for this recognition. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So we
Are
did put, sorry, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr.
I was just going to say, we did a little snippet of
You did great.
Teresa's background, if we'd like to be able to show that
Oh.
real quick.
Thank you.
Just a few slides. And I want to thank Rec Division Manager Dennis Smitherman for putting the slides together for us tonight. That was a few years ago. So you can tell Teresa was always a smile on her face, always involved in community events. Just, again, a great member of the community. She was an entertainer, entertaining at some of our local establishments. Just a great peer to work with. So congratulations, Teresa. Thank you so much.
Any questions from the council?
No questions. I'd like to comment.
Go ahead, Mr.
I don't know that, I know the young children Rayburns, but my involvement with your family goes back decades. I worked with your grandfather on the police department. He used to come in on Wednesday nights, and I threatened to throw him out of the police department one night because every Wednesday night when he came in, we'd go to fight calls and car chases and shootings and stabbings. And I said, Lee, I don't know what you do, but you bring trouble to the police department. And of course, I worked with your dad some as well. So when I really got to know Teresa is when working for the city, going to the oral boards and things. So our relationship intertwined many times. As a matter of fact, you don't remember this, but I used to live about a block away from you when I was living on Monroe many years ago. But it's a true honor to sit up here in this chair and talk about Teresa Rayburn. So thank you very much.
You know, my family goes back a long time with the Machado family. And Teresa, I don't know, I remember exactly when I first met her. I remember when she was homecoming queen and her brother walked her out on the football field because we were always at the football game. But just even out on the council, working with Teresa and so much help on the Mayor's Youth Task Force. It was a great meeting with her. We'd go to lunch every couple of weeks, figure out what next we were going to do, and between our two heads, we could come up with some great ideas. And so and the concerts in the park that Teresa was involved in putting on, and she was there every single concert to make sure that it ran right, for everything. Nothing, there was never a glitch when she was there. It was, and I know she worked for the city of Santa Maria, but she went far, far above and beyond anyone else. It's just amazing, just an amazing person. And I think this is great. This is going to be great. So do we have any requests to speak, Madam Clerk?
No, we do not. We did receive one written comment from Bob Orrock in support of the
In
item.
support of that, okay. Yes, Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you, Mayor. When I was reading about what you've been doing and you have done for the city, Ms. Machado, it was unbelievable. It's just, and there's just one way to say it. It's a thank you on behalf of our families, our kids that are enjoying all that hard work that you put at one point. I think it takes that person to lead, and you were that. So thank you so much, because there's a lot of people, a lot of families up there enjoying. Last time we celebrated the Dia de los Muertos, and that's, by the way, that's my favorite celebration. And a lot of people were having fun. I ended up being the MC for that. They said, Carlos, do you want a microphone? I said, of course. No. So thank you so much, and this is a very well-deserved recognition. Thank you.
So I need a,
Can I make the motion, Madam Mayor?
you certainly may, that's what I
I'll
was going to
second.
ask for a
Yeah,
motion.
I would like the honor of making the motion that we name the facility over there after Teresa Machado.
I'll
Thank-
second.
I have a motion and a second.
We need to adopt a resolution.
Yeah. And to adopt the resolution on the Chapel Street Plaza as Teresa Machado Plaza. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cordero,
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo,
Hi.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Soto.
Aye.
And Mayor Patino.
Aye. And if any of you haven't had a chance to see it, because it still has the fence all around it, it's the 200 block of West Chapel. So go and see it. It's absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Teresa. Next, I'd like to receive an update on the impacts of the recent storm. Mr. Stillwell, can you provide us with an update?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We're pleased to provide an update. So there is an item on the agenda tonight, the proclamation of an emergency, and that's on the consent agenda. We can provide an update now. I just asked that you refrain from questions since it's not a regularly agendized item, but I can have Brett Fulgoni, who's our Public Works Director, start off with the damage during flood, and then Chunning, the Community Development Director, can talk about the recovery and the ways the residents and the community can reach out for assistance.
Mr. Fulgoni, you're on.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. The EOC was open last Monday, January 9th at roughly 17:30 hours. The city received roughly 3.5 inches of rain during a 24-hour period. During the event, Public Works and Utilities staff reported to 16 road closures, multiple blown manhole covers, and in each case, these closures were related to severe flooding. Both Utilities and Public Works crews acted quickly when these reports came in to ensure public safety. Facility staff reported 23 water leaks in 21 buildings. Fire had 17 calls for service on Monday, with dispatch quickly quarterbacking the calls to other departments. Notably, only 5 calls for service to the police department were storm-related. Recreation and Parks responded to 3 tree calls and opened the shelter at the Menominee Center, ready to help anyone who may be in need. As you can see, the response was truly a team effort, and I'm thankful to have been part of such a great team. Shad Springer and myself served as incident commanders for the EOC alongside Roy Duggar and acting Deputy Fire Chief Clayton. We had twice daily structured meetings and maintained constant communication with city leadership, coordinating resources and press releases with city's PIO, Mark Van de Kamp. We're still assessing property damages, although initial reports are generally positive when compared to areas surrounding Santa Maria. The most significant damage impacts were related to Los Flores Ranch, Grogan Park, along with the wastewater treatment plant and the landfill. We had many smaller impacts to roads and buildings. The problem is that the smaller impacts end up accumulating and becoming larger impacts. Our initial damage estimates are roughly $8.7 million for all departments. These totals are preliminary estimates and absolutely will change. I'll quickly defer to Chun on some of the private property impacts.
Good evening, Mr. Ng.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Yesterday, we sent out a city staff consisting of building inspectors, code enforcement officers, and fire prevention staff to do wind chill surveys throughout the city. We didn't cover every street in the city, but certainly the neighborhoods surrounding basins and areas that we know of where flooding had occurred and where road closures occurred. It's difficult to see residential damage, private property damage from windshields, and so there's not a lot to report from the windshield surveys. There was some damage that occurred at Valley Christian Academy, which we included in our reports. And yesterday afternoon, we did send out a survey link for residents to report damage on their properties. And as of 3 p.m. today, we have 7 entries of residents that have reported some damage to their homes. This includes some roof damage or fence damage, or in some cases, damage to their private vehicles. So we expect that residents may continue to provide more information through the survey that was sent out. And the building division and other city staff were certainly in a position to provide more information and to provide further guidance and assistance.
Thank you. I just had one question. We opened up Menominee Center. Did we also, Muscle Center also?
It was, yeah, Atkinson.
Atkinson,
yeah.
Okay.
But ultimately, that was short-lived as we directed
Nobody
it
showed
back
up,
to.
right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just to a little bit more information to share, the flooding on the Canal Street and Blosser area was due to a massive influx of water that overwhelmed the basin. In speaking with flood control, the basin and all the flood control systems within the city operated as designed. And the city performed as designed. And after the initial storm on Monday, with the rain in the forecast, the city of Santa Maria and the county of Santa Barbara flood control cooperated to install a 12-inch diesel pump on the Blosser Basin to help alleviate immediate flooding impacts and create capacity in the Blosser Basin due to anticipated storms from this last weekend. The county provided the pump and we operated it 24 hours a day for 2 days, pumping roughly 6 million gallons of water. We truly appreciate the cooperation and communication from County Flood, both before, during, and after the events. We had other problems with flooding around town, and the same issue holds true. The amount of water flow exceeded the design capacity of the system and overwhelmed both the channels and the basins. We will continue to refine our estimates, begin work on recovery, and collaborate with our county and local partners on both short and long-term fixes to the flood control system.
Thank you. I know I went out to I call it the lake up on North Blosser, and then I went out to Jim May Park. So.
Yeah. And once you begin to understand the flow of how it flows west to east. So
yeah, you could see the pump and you could see all the water going down the channels. Yeah. I don't think the people of Santa Maria realize that you guys go out and clean out all these channels and culverts before the storm, and then you're still cleaning them out during the storm, so everything flows right. So, Any questions? Mr. Escobedo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question, you mentioned that there were 7 entries for the damage, and do we have is there any deadline in regards when, or is like as soon as possible, or?
The initial damage estimates, they're completed daily, so we'll be sending another update to the county. And so we're constantly updating those. By the end of the week, we'll have even better information. FEMA's going to be visiting us this week, and so we'll be prepared for that. And then FEMA will provide the deadlines of when they need everything. We don't have those deadlines yet.
So right now, just go
Right
ahead
now,
and
we're
keep
gearing up
And,
as much as we can.
And how are we communicating with, are we knocking on doors, sending emails, social media? How are we
So
working?
we're doing the city-owned public facilities. Chun, if you want to touch on what our outreach looks like for private. Yeah, via the press releases and city website for the private,
Okay,
yeah, private side to report any damages.
thank you.
Sure.
And I know we're also doing radio. Yeah, so, okay. I want to thank you. Oh, go ahead. Ms.
Thank you.
Soto.
How's the collaboration and partnership with adjacent cities going? Are we doing any of that? I know that some of our neighboring cities also got hit pretty hard, like the city of Guadalupe.
Yeah, and certainly we did reach out to the city of Guadalupe. I know Andrew had a couple of conversations with them to see if we needed to assist in any way. We stood ready to assist them as needed. I know that fire chief is here. He might be able to talk about what some of the mutual aid could have been as well. But yeah, and with the county too, just trying to collaborate and work with our partners as opposed to staying in silos.
Chief Clayton, did you want to make some remarks?
Sure. We participated in the Alpha Area Group of response to pre-position in Santa Barbara before the storms, anticipating debris flows from the flooding in Montecito and the front country. Those resources were pulled back to respond to the Parkland incident in Orchid. And a lot of small incidents happened that night that we responded to, but we also went to Guadalupe. They had 21 houses flood, so we were busy. And our mutual aid is we do it all the time, so it was seamless. So we helped our neighbors, and then we also brought in some help as well.
Thank you. Okay, I want to thank all of our staff for all the hard work they've done on the front lines, because they were out there, and it's really interesting when you see all that water getting pumped out of the basin there on North Blosser. And we are, I was talking to our city manager, and we will be telling our federal friends that we do need a basin east on the other side of the freeway, because when you start paving over, the water has to go someplace. It no longer percolates into the ground, and we're going to have to stop that water before it does come down into Santa Maria. So, Mr. Escobedo.
Yeah, I would like to join that recognition. Thank you, guys. I was up there, and I saw you guys in action. You guys did a really good job, and it's just something we haven't seen. I mean, and you guys really worked really hard, and especially on the North Blosser, that was unbelievable. And seeing that, so thank you to everybody who were part of that effort, and you did a great job. And definitely, we do need something that can prevent that from happening again, or be ready to avoid that.
But we have our levy, so we worked hard to get that. So next this evening is a presentation of the Hometown Heroes, Mr. Posada or Mr. Zimmerman.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members. Thank you. So here we are, Hometown Heroes. Again, it's hard to believe it's 23, and we're here with another list of deserving honorees. So twice a year, we bring a class of Hometown Heroes to you. In the past couple of years, we've added some of our, we kind of extended the role to those individuals who have helped with the pandemic recovery. Tonight, where you have mostly of our military individuals being recognized. So their banners will go up. Actually, I think they're up now, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to run through the list with first family members here. We'd like to invite you up to the front, and Mr. Smitherman will present you with a certificate recognizing the presentation tonight. And let's just get started. So first on our list is Amar Ati, Marine Corps, and he's been nominated by Sylvia Ati. Are you present? Great. All right. Come on down. Next, we have Dwayne L. Carter, parentheses, it says Nick. So it's nominated by Zach Bishop. I don't believe they're here. Next, we have Ishmael Castillo, U.S. Army, nominated by Hope Cosart. Are they present? Thank you. Ishmael is a Purple Heart winner and died on February 24th, 1945. Thank you for bringing him forward to us. Next, we have John Castillo, Joey, Marine Corps. He's nominated by Henry Ruiz. Henry here? Mr. Castillo is also a Purple Heart winner and Bronze Star. I'm sorry, I can't see it from here. Mr. Castillo passed away on August 6, 2003. And he was a member of the Marine Corps, if I didn't mention that. We'll make sure his family gets the certificate. Next, we have Thomas Castillo, U.S. Army, nominated by Hope Cosart. Hope here. Again, a Purple Heart veteran, died on August 1st, 1969. Next, we have Matthew Crow, U.S. Coast Guard. He's nominated by Alan Crow. I'm not sure if they're going to be here tonight. We'll make sure the family gets their certificate. Charles A. Lilly, U.S. Army, nominated by Jose Farias. Is there one here for Mr. Lilly? All right, thank you. We'll make sure he gets his certificate. Next, we're recognizing Luis P. Lopez, U.S. Navy. Nominated by Jose Farias. Passed away in 2019 at the age of 84. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Narciso M. Lopez, U.S. Army, also nominated by Isabel Robles. I remember Isabel as a different last name. Hi, Isabel. Isabel and Teresa were cohorts back in the day. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad you got to see her. Moving on to Soltero R. Lopez, U.S. Army, nominated by Stephen E. Lopez. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Good to see you, too. Next, I have Carmen G. Pilato, U.S. Navy, nominated by Rosalie Baez. Rosalie, I know you're here. Come on up. For those of you that may not know this, Carmen was with the Public Works Department for several years as civil engineer, I believe, and worked for the department, 30 years or so. He was a longtime city employee. So thank you, Rosalie, for bringing him up. Next, we have David, hopefully I get this right, Yutt. David Yutt, U.S. Air Force, and nominated by Audrey Heisel. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. So Mayor and council members, thank you so much for letting us run this program. It's always an honor to recognize our veterans and our first responders have helped us through the pandemic these last few years, and so we certainly appreciate that opportunity. I want to thank Mr. Smitherman for kind of spearheading the program for Rec and Parks, and also the American Legion and the VFW who also help us with the program. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posada. And I say thank you to all the veterans that fought so hard. I can remember as a kid in Santa Maria that practically all the men were gone, and just the women were here. And in my grandmother's house, there was like 5 of us families. Well, all the men were overseas, and we were a lucky family. My dad came back, all of my uncles came back. So thank you very much for all you've done for our country. The next item this evening is a presentation of the businesses of the month, and Councilmember Cordero and I will be presenting the certificates along with Chamber member and CEO Glenn Morris.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, it is an honor to be back with you again as we start the second year of our partnership recognizing local businesses on a monthly basis here at the council meetings. You'll recall last year we focused on businesses in the women-owned.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Morris, why don't we hold off a minute until...
It's a little bit of a bottleneck.
I can hear you, but let's just wait a minute until...
Everybody can hear.
Until everyone is exited the chambers.
Got a bit of a bottleneck back there. Yeah. That's why they're leaving. They heard I was coming. Yeah.
Wow.
Hometown heroes and soccer programs, that'll fill the room, right, Mayor? So as I was saying, last year we focused on recognizing businesses who were either owned by women in the community or were manufacturers in our community. This year, working with your staff, we've identified 2 new categories. So each month we'll be bringing you a business in the healthcare sector and a long established, I guess is the best way to describe that business. Businesses that have been in our community over long periods of time. I suspect that as we work through this year, they're all going to be in the multiple decades as we highlight those. So tonight I want to begin with our healthcare business, which is A.T. Still University and their College for Healthy Communities. Now, in contrast to the businesses that have been with us for decades, this is a new entry into our community and a new addition to our healthcare ecosystem here in Santa Maria. A.T. Still University, and let me begin with inviting Dr. Wendell, Ted Wendell, who's our Senior Vice President, to join me up front. We'll get him walking up here while we talk about him and his team. AT Still University was founded originally in 1892. So they've been around a long time, but they took them a while to find Santa Maria. But they're glad they did, right? So originally founded in Missouri by Dr. Andrew Taylor Still, and is considered the founding university for osteopathic medicine. Now, if you're like me and need that explained, Dr. Wendell will do that after, what that osteopathic really means. But what I've come to understand as we've gotten to know this business is that it really is reflected in the name they chose for their Santa Maria operation, which is the College for Healthy Communities, and really represents their commitment to what they call whole person care. And I think we really appreciate that. AT Still, they describe themselves, to us at least, as a key player in preparing the healthcare workforce for underserved communities. And they really have a heart for preparing those who are going to go out and care for those who are working and living in communities that maybe don't have the same level of healthcare that other places do. That is represented by the fact that what brought them originally to Santa Maria or put us on their radar is a long-standing partnership that they've had with the Central Coast Healthcare Centers, which serves so many of our neighbors and friends in the valley. They currently have 22 folks working for them here in town, and have just, well, I guess you're about halfway through the semester or the year with their second cohort of trained students. So, Mayor and members of the council, it's my honor to recognize AT Still University's College for Healthy Communities and introduce Dr. Ted Wendell, who's the Senior Vice President and has become one of our key partners in this community. Dr. Wendell.
Mayor Patino, members of the City Council, I want to thank you for this recognition. We arrived here a little over 5 years ago, and to be honest, we were kind of lost. And we wouldn't be here without the assistance of the Chamber and the administration from this city. They worked hard to help us find an appropriate location and to establish our campus here. We're just starting. We've got great plans. We've made great partnerships with the Central Coast Community Health Center, as well as Marion Dignity Hospital, and together, that partnership is going to do some amazing things in this city. We're very proud to be here, and we're honored by this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to say a few words before I come down. I can remember, I think you came here in, was it 2019 or 2018, and we sat around and talked, and then you came back, and we sat around and talked some more, and I thought, man, you don't want to seem like you're too eager to have you guys come here because you don't want to, but we were so pleased that your school did finally decide to come here to Santa Maria because there's such a need here. And it's important to all of us. It's important to the people in Santa Maria. Of course, you're brand new, so people don't really know you're here. So a lot of people are out there watching, and so more and more, they're going to find out about you and know that you're here. When I went to speak, when you had your first class, I was amazed at just that you could just tell the caliber of students that you have. But I was surprised how many came from out of state. So the shock when they have to pay rent in California, I think, was there. And to come here when it's, and we are, affordable here in Santa Maria. But I was really impressed with the caliber of student that you had.
Part of their business model is they take these students, they're here for a year in class, and then they send them all over the country, embed them in places like Central Coast Community Health Centers and really get them, that real hands-on training. Part of what we really are excited about is we think that a lot of those folks from out of state may are going to come here and get used to that rent, and they're going to choose to stay and be part of our healthcare system here. Our second business today, our long-established business, is the historic Santa Maria Inn. And I'd like to invite their general manager, Scott Shute, to join me here. I think if we're talking about long-standing businesses in the community, this is just an obvious one to start with. This historic Santa Maria Inn was opened in 1917 by proprietor Frank McCoy, and has been owned for probably the last 22 or 23 years by local residents of the Hardys and the Hearn, Hollinghead, and the Hearn families, and as they continue to operate that business here in our community. I suspect that everyone in this room has spent time at the Santa Maria Inn. It is kind of our address and our central location for business meetings, for hosting family and friends from out of town, for celebrations. Many of you may have been, celebrated some special moments out in the Rose Garden, out in the back. The Santa Maria Inn is really synonymous with the community of Santa Maria. And we are big fans as we try to promote and fill up their rooms through our tourism programs. They currently have about 80 employees out there working for the hotel, hosting our guests and friends. And one of the fun pieces Scott was just telling me, they're in the process of renovating the wine cellar, so perhaps we'll host an event down there fairly soon. So, Mayor, members of the council, it's my honor to recognize the historic Santa Maria Inn and introduce Scott Shute, the general manager. Scott?
Mayor, council, on behalf of Judy Hearn and Blanche Hollingshead, thank you for the recognition. Appreciate it. I have recently taken over as GM of the Santa Maria Inn, so this is a new challenge for me. I'm born and raised here, so I've seen a lot, and we're very excited to see what we can do with the hotel and how we can take it forward and do some good things for the community as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just take one quick extra moment. I appreciated the update from your staff on the recovery efforts, in particular, trying to reach out to the community on flood impacts. We would just point out for the public's knowledge that we have partnered with the city, and there's a survey for businesses to notify us of impacts on the Chamber's website and on our social media pages. So I would encourage local business owners in the community, if they also have had significant impacts, that they can initially report those to us, and we'll connect them to the proper resources. So,
Thank you. We appreciate that. Mr. Escobedo?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to make a comment to the Santa Maria Inn, Scott. I had the pleasure of working a couple of years ago as one of your servers at the banquet department. And you guys have great employees there, great people, hardworking, and I send them saludos. And yeah, just looking forward to, it's a great place. And I wish you the best of success on this new position, and we'll see us around. Thank you.
Next, we will have a proclamation, and Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez will be making the presentation.
Thank you. I'd like to make the proclamation, whereas human trafficking is a form of modern slavery that occurs in every state wherein victims are forced to work in various forms of labor, exploitation, and other services that are induced through force, fraud, or coercion. And whereas due to its isolated and discrete nature, many individuals across the globe are unaware that trafficking exists in their communities. And whereas it is estimated that more than 28 million people around the world are victims of human trafficking, and whereas human trafficking victims face a cruelty that has no place in a civilized world, a crime that can take many forms, one that debases a common humanity and violates what the United States stands for in a country, and whereas increased education about how to identify human trafficking, along with increased knowledge of in-state resources and services for those affected by criminal exploitation can help decrease the number of future victims, and whereas Human Trafficking Awareness Month is an opportunity to recognize a critical role all Santa Maria residents play in preventing, reporting, and adjudicating these heinous crimes. Now therefore, the mayor, Alice Patino, from the city of Santa Maria, does hereby recognize January 2023 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in the city of Santa Maria and encourage businesses and residents to educate themselves on the issue and report suspicious activity. Accepting this is going to be Ann McCarty, who I've known for a long time. She is the Executive Director of the North County Rape Crisis Center.
I asked if I could have the microphone. She said yes, so y'all watch out.
You can have it for as long as you want.
Oh, well, thank you, Mayor Patino. I can't tell you how excited I am tonight. I don't think I could have picked a better night to say, hey, let's do the proclamation tonight. Hometown heroes, amazing businesses in Santa Maria, and I've got two amazing city staff standing up here with me too, who I'll introduce in just a second. So good evening, Mayor Patino and members of the City Council. My name is Ann McCarty, and I'm the Executive Director for the North County Rape Crisis and Child Protection Center. Our agency provides services in all of northern Santa Barbara County and Mid-County, but tonight I'm here as a member of the Santa Barbara County Human Trafficking Task Force. I need to bring your attention to a global crisis, but it's also a local crisis. January is indeed Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and sadly, our pristine corner piece of the earth that we call heaven on earth is not immune to this terrible form of victimization. Human trafficking is an issue. It's a pervasive issue in our community, but few people stand up here and talk about it. The County Human Trafficking Task Force was formed in 2013 because we realized that none of us can do this work alone or in a vacuum, and we simply had to unite. We engage and rely on the expertise that each entity brings to the table. It truly is a collaborative effort as we work to assess the scope of the problem locally, offer access to training opportunities, develop protocols, and improve law enforcement and victim service response. We are a group of organizations with the common goal of educating and intervening, advocating, and changing the landscape of trafficking. So just how bad is it? Well, I think I stand up here every single year and I say one is too many. And I will continue to say that until we're done with it. Human trafficking is a crime that knows no boundaries, and everyone, and I mean everyone, is at risk. In Santa Barbara County, since January of 2017, there have been 243 new human trafficking investigations, with 217 new survivors having been identified. Of those, 27% have been minors, with an additional 33% between the ages of 18 to 24. And 42% were Santa Barbara County residents prior to trafficking. 91% were sex trafficking. Keep in mind, human trafficking is difficult to measure. Fear of harm to self or others, language barriers, lack of personal freedom, and a fear of law enforcement often prevent victims from reporting their victimization or seeking any services. So the number really does have the potential to be much higher. As a city council, excuse me, you have taken a step by acknowledging the work with this proclamation. But what now? Your work isn't done, my work isn't done, and I encourage you to continue to learn more about the issue of human trafficking. I'm honored tonight to have Dawn Palacios, Code Enforcement Manager, and Yvette Fuentes, Code Enforcement Supervisor, City of Santa Maria, stand here with me tonight. I asked them both to be with me because of the next step that code enforcement in your city is taking to combat the issue of human trafficking. While policy is still being written and training is imminent, your city's code enforcement has realized that there's more that they can do. And they've started to take the steps to learn more so they can do more. By being proactive, code enforcement will have tools and resources at their fingertips that will allow them to connect to the right people should they suspect someone is being trafficked. This is going to be such a valuable addition to the city and to the Human Trafficking Task Force. I applaud Dawn, I applaud Yvette, I applaud the entire code enforcement team for wanting to take this on, for wanting to learn more, for wanting to be a solution to the problem. And as a city, imagine how much stronger we are when we present an educated, uniform front to fight this insidious form of violence. So thank you again for this recognition, but thank them for the job that they have in front of them and what they're willing to do. I sure am proud of them.
Thank you.
And they said if you had any questions, they'd be willing to answer them.
I've got them on speed dial. They know that. They hear from me almost daily.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann. Thank you, ladies. Next, we have a public comment period. Madam Clerk, could you please read the criteria for the public comment portion of the agenda?
This time is reserved to accept comments from the public on consent agenda items, closed session items, or matters not otherwise scheduled on the printed agenda this evening. Unless otherwise directed by the mayor, speakers will have 3 minutes to comment. Direction to staff may be given. However, state law does not allow action to be taken on matters that are not on the printed agenda. Once the public comment period commences, no other speakers will be allowed to submit a request to speak form. And Madam Mayor, we have one request to speak right now.
One request to speak, okay? And that's Mr. Gary Hall. Good evening, Mr. Hall.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, staff. My name is Gary Hall. I'm a resident of Rancho Buena Vista Mobile Estates at 2135 North Railroad Avenue here in Santa Maria. I represent the North Santa Barbara County Mobile Homeowners Team, or NSBIT. First, let me apologize for not attending your December 20 meeting. I missed one. If I'd been in town, I would have attended and congratulated Councilmember Soto for her re-election and the newly elected Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez. Congratulations. With the new year and the new city council, I'm re-energized, and I remain confident that fair, beneficial, mandatory, and enforceable mobile home rent stabilization in Santa Maria is achievable in 2023. The mobile home residents are anxious to reconvene the stakeholder meeting. We felt the November 29th stakeholder meeting with only the city representatives was very beneficial and productive. We were invited to produce and submit our view of the critical unresolved issues. On January 9th, an overdue email was sent to the city's representatives from our attorney, Bruce Stanton. Included was a document titled Mobile Home Model Lease Program, Homeowner's Summary of Issues and Proposed Solutions. The document states that our overall goal is to provide protection to all Santa Maria mobile home residents presently living in an unregulated rental market where the current model lease program has been ineffective in protecting homeowner equity and maintaining affordable housing. The document provides our view of the 4 broad issues that need to be addressed. We have provided a specific goal to be achieved for each issue and proposed solutions for meeting those goals. We are extremely interested in receiving feedback to that document prior to the next stakeholder meeting, which is currently scheduled for January 26th. We believe our work so far has met the intent of the June 7th, 2022 motion, which reads in part, to examine enhancing the model lease agreement to see if there was room for improvement and to look for alternatives. We believe success can be at hand if willing and open-minded participants look for positive solutions. We're doing our part. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment portion of the agenda. Before we move on, Mr. Stillwell, did you have any comments? Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar, Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 3?
Routine items are presented for City Council approval without discussion as a single agenda item in order to expedite the meeting. The consent calendar is approved by roll call vote with one motion, and these items are discussed only upon request of the council members.
Does anyone have items they wish to pull for discussion?
I do, Madam Mayor. Item 3D, please.
3D. Anyone else? And Madam Clerk, can you read the item 3D?
Adopt a resolution approving an agreement for professional services with Two Mexicans LLC, DBA 2M Waste Solutions for 1 year with the option to extend by mutual parties' consent.
Thank you. Ms. Soto?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have additional questions for staff, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you. My first question is, as I read over the RFP, it states on there that this is really to clean up homeless encampments that we've had in the city of Santa Maria. And so my question to staff is, how will we be partnering with service providers in the city of Santa Maria who provide direct support to folks who are houseless, whether that may be in San Luis Obispo County or here in Santa Barbara North County?
So the way in which we're partnering, it's kind of a network of partnerships and stakeholders. The County of Santa Barbara provides a lot of services for homeless. We also coordinate with local nonprofits like CityKnit and Good Samaritan. And as you know, the City Council on an annual basis, typically, and in this case, the last budget cycle, we contributed I believe nearly $300,000 to a variety of projects that support the unhoused. And right now, currently, we're coordinating with the County of Santa Barbara to kind of merge our efforts as it pertains to cleaning up homeless encampments. And the importance of that is, dealing with conditions that are unsafe for the people living in those situations, but also for the surrounding residents and businesses. But one of the things that's a challenge that we're also working with the county on is creating more capacity for case management and for bed space at local facilities. And so Good Samaritan is working on a couple of projects, and their capacity will increase in the coming year here. And there's another organization called LAGS that is working on a tenant improvement to produce 20 beds in their facility. And so it's kind of a combination of ensuring there's capacity and case management, which is primarily performed by the county health department and our local nonprofits, and then kind of the city's efforts and the functions that we have to work in concert with them to deal with all of these things simultaneously.
Okay, great, thank you. It says in the proposal that was submitted by 2M that they would be cleaning up sites, I believe, twice a week, if that is, or twice a month, I'm sorry, if that's correct. How would those sites be identified?
So the way that the agreement is, we don't expect to be doing that kind of exactly in that fashion or at that frequency, but up to that, so that the funding and the agreement covers what we could be doing. So we are prioritizing areas that are clearly unsafe or where things are happening there that maybe take advantage of vulnerable populations, where residents or businesses are having major concerns, and where we've also identified with the county areas in the city that would take priority for cleaning up and connecting the houseless individuals living there to supportive services.
Great. And then my last question is, how would the individuals be notified that their items were collected? I know that it talks about trash collecting, but in the trash collecting description, it talks about clothing as well. And so I am concerned that unintentionally we may be throwing people's belongings, such as clothing, unintendedly. And so how, can you walk me through that? Like, one, how are the individuals going to be notified? And two, how do we make sure that what's being collected isn't things of value to the person?
Yeah, that's a really good question, council member, and it's something that collectively we and staff have worked hard to make sure that we have a process that covers that, and our city attorney has provided us with guidance on how to ensure that we're following the law. And so what we do is we provide noticing, of course, and our noticing goes well in advance, typically, of what's required by the law. And when we do go to an encampment, so everyone has been offered supportive services, and those who choose to take advantage of that, are supported and helped in that way. Those who don't, our police department is there. And I'm speaking of within the city limits, not in a Caltrans right away. So then it becomes a concerted effort where we're working with Highway Patrol and Caltrans as well. But if we're just taking the case, which is similar, of something within our city limits, the police department is there, and an officer will work to ensure that the belongings and valuables are identified and separated from things that the individual is willing to part with. And those items are collected and cataloged and stored for the person to come back and recollect them. So, and then they would go through the PD to recollect those items.
Okay, so.
If they can't take them away at that time.
Friday, so the items would be collected by 2M and then taken to police
No,
department?
we divert them at that moment. So 2M does not do anything until we've separated out the valuables, the personal belongings.
Got it.
So it doesn't get commingled. So the contractor only would dispose of trash once it's identified as something that can be thrown away.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the consent calendar in a second. Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, may
Yes.
we vote on item 3D separately? I'm sorry, I should have said that from the beginning.
Okay,
To redo it?
so
I'll
adjust your motion in the second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, so all the items, but with the exception of 3D?
Councilmember Escobedo.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Soto. Aye. Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
And Mayor Patino.
Aye. Okay, do I have a motion to approve 3D?
I move that we approve, is
3D.
well, 3D.
Yeah. Do I have a
With the
second?
2.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
discussion?
go ahead.
Thank you. My only concern with moving forward with approving this agreement with 2M is that rather than solving the solution, rather than solving the problem of houselessness, we are just cleaning up, quote unquote, cleaning up areas where these vulnerable populations live. And I understand that in areas like, for instance, the riverbed, that is an unsafe place, especially during winter storms, for people to live. But without me having clarity in writing as to how we're going to be referring people to supportive services, I feel uncomfortable moving with that. I would be more comfortable if I also saw like an adjacent to this, like an MOU, if we don't have one, with some of the community service agencies that we are coordinating and partnering with to ensure that we are not only doing our due diligence in putting in place an agreement that stipulates how we're going to clean up these encampments, but also making sure that every person who we encounter, or every person whose belongings we encounter, receive the supportive services that they need, because in essence, what we would be doing is pushing them elsewhere in our community and not really solving the issue.
Well, the intention certainly is not to push them out. CityNet comes in, Good Samaritan comes in, Inviting Back Santa Maria comes in and helps them. And our code compliance, we have officers, our police officers, and to help them if they want a bed, if they need any services, and they are out there all the time to do that. So and then we have to consider the other population in our community that wants this cleaned up. With the riverbed, which is the pollution that they have done down there, and it's being swept out to Guadalupe, this is really concerning, really concerning. So I think that this is a great thing to have that, because we do not want our police officers, nor do we want our code compliance doing any of this stuff at all. This is, to me, this is very dangerous to have them doing this, and then this company knows how to do it. So I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo.
I would say that I've been part of those group of.
Mr. Cordero, vote yes or no, because we're finished with the discussion. I mean, Mr. Escobedo, yes or no, we're finished with discussion.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that we need these kind of services, so I would go for yes.
Councilmember Soto.
No.
And Mayor Patino.
Aye. Next, we have an annual January appointments. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title and begin the staff report?
The City Council will consider making appointments to the Block Grants Advisory Committee, the Board of Appeals, the Planning Commission, and the Recreation and Parks Commission. And I'll start with the Block Grants Advisory Committee. Council members Aguilera, Hernandez, and Soto have the opportunity to make one appointment each to fill a term ending in July 2025. Applications were received from Roberta Chavez and Denise Martinez.
Okay. Councilmember Soto, do you have a nomination?
Not at this moment, Madam Mayor. Would it be possible for me to postpone my nomination? Thank you.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez, do you have a nomination?
Yeah, I would like to nominate Denise Martinez.
Denise Martinez. Okay, I'll accept the nomination and make the motion to appoint Denise Martinez to the Block Grants Advisory Committee. Would someone like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Patino.
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Aye.
And Councilmember Soto.
Madam Clerk, can you please continue?
On the Board of Appeals, Mayor Patino has the opportunity to appoint one member for an unspecified term. One application was received from Tom Lopez.
I will make a motion to appoint Tom Lopez.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Patino.
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo.
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Aye.
And Councilmember Soto.
Aye.
Okay, you can continue.
Next, we have the Planning Commission. Councilmembers Aguilera Hernandez and Soto have the opportunity to appoint one member each for a 4-year term ending in January 2026. Incumbent Isel Blanco has reapplied, and 4 new applications were received from Isaac Baruman, Carol Karamitsos, Yastamin Mohajer, and Faradur Rahman.
Councilmember Soto, do you have a nomination?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move forward with nominating Isel Blanco to the Planning Commission.
Okay. And Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez, do you have a nomination?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to appoint Yasmin Mahajer to the Planning Commission.
Okay, I accept these nominations and make a motion to appoint these nominees to the Plan Commission. Would anyone like to second the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Patino.
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
Aye.
And Councilmember Soto.
Aye.
Okay, I want to make a comment here before we get into the other commissions and boards. It's when we make an appointment and we ask somebody to serve, they have, just like we are serving and we are expected to attend meetings. And we had this come before the council, was it last year or year before? Because we had members of boards and commissions that were not attending regularly. And I know you can make a commitment at one time and then maybe 6 months from now, a year from now, things change in all of our lives, and I understand that. But if people are going to be on a commission, and if they can't make it, they need to resign, because you can't have people missing 3 meetings out of 10. And I think it's unacceptable. But that's not my responsibility. That's your responsibility on who you guys appoint. I'm going to let you, because I don't want to be the bad guy in this. And I just think it's really incumbent upon all of us to make sure. I've been in the position before many years ago, so I can say that now. And I think I've warned everyone about that when I've spoken to you. I've been in the position where I had an appointee that was attending the meetings, but was really doing irregular things. So, and with that being said, I just really want to make sure that you know that, and that when your appointees are not attending regularly, that you let them know. And that's fine. It's not, you're not going to be bad guys because you say, because people aren't attending. And with the Parks Commission, I think to me, there should be an expectation that they do attend park unveilings, the lighting of the Christmas tree. There's about 3 or 4 things all month long that they can attend. And I don't see a lot of the Parks Commissioners there. So mine is always there. So thank you, Ms. Carey. But I just think it's important that they have that commitment to be there. So with that, I'll get off my soapbox. So,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for bringing that up and reminding us of that. But if a question to staff, I know you alluded to the policy that the City Council adopted a year ago, was it July of last year?
Wow.
Has that policy been discussed with the commission members or any committee members? If not, is that something that we would be able to do?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Soto. So the policy was enacted by the City Council last July, and we have incorporated into our processes, both through informing the commissions about it, gathering attendance records, and this year being a half year, we're involving it in this process based on the discussions tonight. But going forward, we will more closely align it with this agenda item in the future. So you receive a number of resignations for people from various reasons. They don't reapply, they resign for their own reasons. And this will be another opportunity for you to accept the resignation. And the policy the council adopted is if a commissioner misses 25% of their meetings, they're a deemed resignation pending the acceptance by the City Council. So you'd have the opportunity at these agenda items in the future to review the attendance, accept a resignation, a de facto resignation by a majority vote of the City Council, or to say they, determine they had circumstances, or they can stay on until there's someone else appointed. And that might be the case in the event that you don't have a quorum on a commission. You might have someone stay there until you have an appointee to replace them.
Okay. And I know that at SBCAG, APCD, LAFCO, different state boards and commissions, if you're not attending 2 meetings, they just pretty much tell you you're gone. So, okay, Madam Clerk, can you proceed then with Recreation and Parks?
So the final commission is the Recreation and Parks Commission. Council members Aguilera, Hernandez, and Soto will each have the opportunity to nominate one member for a 4-year term ending in January 2026. Incumbent Paul Lee has reapplied, and 4 new applications were received from Elise Castle, Vladimir Cruz, Amelia Gonzalez Paz, and Sally Lopez.
Okay, Councilmember Soto, do you have a nomination?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to nominate incumbent Paul Lee.
Okay, Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez.
I would like to nominate Sally Lopez.
Okay, I accept these nominations and make a motion to appoint these nominees to the Recreation and Parks Commission. Can I get a second?
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Patino?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo?
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez?
Aye.
And Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Next, we have a public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider a recommendation of the Planning Commission to review a plan development permit and tentative track map for People's Self-Help Housing to construct 49 single-family residences at 3170 Santa Maria Way.
The staff report is to be made by Director of Community Development. No, it's not, Mr. Rain. I know you're not, Mr. Rain. Good evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Frank Albro, Principal Planner in the Planning Division, and I will be making the presentation this evening. First off, I wanted to mention that the project before you is a plan development permit and a vesting tentative map for 49 affordable single-family residential lots on a 50 parcel subdivision at 3170 Santa Maria Way. The project was presented and has been vetted through a Planning Commission study session on November 17th of 2022, as well as a subdivision committee meeting on November 29th, 2022. And the most recent action on this project was the Planning Commission approval, or recommendation of approval, which was made unanimously by the Planning Commission for both the plan development permit and the map as depicted in the application materials provided to the City Council. So the project location, as I mentioned, is 3170 Santa Maria Way. It is the site of the former Santa Maria Drive-In. The proposed density of the project is 5.5 dwelling units per acre, which is below the maximum for the zone of the site, which is 8 dwelling units per acre. And the site is surrounded to the north and to the east by other residential designations, and to the south by a mobile home park. Here's an enlargement of the site. As I noted, this is the former drive-in theater site. The City Council had approved the current zoning, the R1 zoning of the site in December of 2021. While typically when the City Council receives a zoning and general plan amendment, we also see the project moving forward at the time. Being that the applicant is an affordable housing provider and relying on outside funding, that applicant chose to only process the general plan amendment and rezoning at that time. And that's why we're here today with the map and the plan development permit. Additionally, typically, a map such as this and a plan development permit would be reviewed by the Planning Commission, and that Planning Commission would be the body that would make the final determination on the map and the plan development permit. In this case, the reason why we're taking this map to City Council is the applicant is requesting smaller than the typical lot size for the zone. That request is something that the municipal code enables an applicant to do. And as long as the project does not exceed the densities for the zone, the applicant can request those smaller lot sizes. They are subject to city council approval, however, and that is the reason this is before you tonight. And I will remind the council that the density of this project is 5.5 dwelling units per acre, and that's well below the 8 dwelling units per acre maximum that's specified by the zone. So the subdivision will include, as I mentioned, 49 lots and one larger lot for a retention basin, which is adjacent to Santa Maria Way. The exterior of the subdivision will be bounded by a 6-foot-high masonry wall, and then the fencing in between the lots will be wood privacy fencing. The 2 lots closest to Santa Maria Way do have a side wall that serves as a sound wall for those lots. Here's a more illustrative depiction of the proposed subdivision. You see a typical lot with a typical building footprint there on the right-hand side. The subdivision will be a mix of 3 and 4 bedrooms. The size of the homes, 12 to 1,500 square feet. And there will be 3 different varieties of building types that would be constructed on this subdivision. So here you see some typical floor plans, the 3 different varieties of model homes that will be constructed. And here's some of the elevations. And in the process, the mitigated negative declaration was adopted by the council with the rezoning. At the time that went through, the proposed project was the same as what is before the council tonight. Therefore, no further environmental review is necessary, and the project can rely on those mitigations that were adopted in 2021. So to reiterate, this project is before the council tonight because the applicant is asking for a smaller than standard lot size. The minimum lot size in the R1 zone is 6,000 square feet. The average lot size that's being proposed, not including the large basin, is approximately 5,750 square feet. So not much of a variation there. Some of the lots do go down to just above 5,000 square feet, but then on the same, in the same area, you might have one that's 9,000 square feet in size. And to reiterate, also, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the subdivision map as shown and the plan development permit as conditioned. I do want to note that through the Planning Commission hearing process, neighbors of the project did speak, and in response to the concerns that were mentioned at that Planning Commission meeting, 2 conditions were added by the Planning Commission. One was in regards to trimming trees along the east side of the development, existing trees that are adjacent to some existing homes. And the other condition was regarding access to the site. The main vehicular and pedestrian access to the site will be from Santa Maria Way. At the time this went to Planning Commission, there was a proposal for an emergency access and pedestrian access through to Diane Drive, which is the subdivision to the north. The Planning Commission, after hearing concerns of the neighbors, responded with the neighbors' request that there not be a pedestrian gate connection between this subdivision and the subdivision to the north. So with those conditions, their only access will be Santa Maria Way, and there will be a gated emergency-only access to Diane Drive. And that concludes staff's presentation. The recommendation from the Planning Commission and the recommendation from city staff is that the council take the following actions, which is to adopt a resolution approving the Skylight Homes vesting tentative map, and separately adopt a resolution approving the Skylight Homes plan development permit. Staff is available for any questions, and the applicant is in the audience this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Albro. Any questions from the council right now?
I do, Madam
Ms. Soto?
Mayor. What was the reasoning that residents had for not wanting that walkway going into their existing neighborhoods?
My recollections, there was a number of comments made regarding that access through. I would say, in my opinion, from hearing the comments, their main concern was regarding parking. They were concerned that the residents of this neighborhood, if provided a pedestrian walkway, would park on the Diane Drive cul-de-sac and then walk through to this proposed subdivision. I can mention that staff has done an analysis of the parking for this project. So each home will have a two-car garage, which is the minimum requirement. In addition, each home will have a driveway apron that will provide 2 additional parking spaces. And then lastly, we did an analysis of the on-street parking. While code does not permit us to count that towards the parking provided for a project, our estimate after taking away spaces that wouldn't be possible due to fire hydrants or corners, and of course not parking in front of driveways, we estimate at least 70 additional parking spaces would be available on street. Approximately that equates to more than 5 parking spaces per each unit that's proposed.
Would not having this walkway hinder accessibility, like public safety accessibility in any way?
It should not hinder public safety accessibility because there will be, as I've noted, the emergency access gate that will allow emergency vehicles through. They will have a key for what's called a Knox box, which is essentially a skeleton key that allows them to open any of those gates. And they would have to get out, open the gate, and drive through in case of any sort of emergency, but they would have that access.
There's only one entry in for the residents?
Correct. One
Santa Maria
vehicular and pedestrian access for the residents. I will note that this is the configuration that was analyzed through the environmental document and found to be satisfactory in terms of traffic, turning movements, and so forth. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Albro? So is the applicant available? Good evening.
Mayor and Council. My name is Cheryl Flores from People's Self-Help Housing. I don't have a whole lot to add other than what Mr. Albro has presented, other than we have continually tried to work with the neighbors and be good neighbors. We explained the parking situation. We have amended the map slightly to remove the pedestrian access, and we're very happy to be here tonight with a full council to make this decision.
Let me ask you something. So you've got 2 cars, you have a 2-car garage, which nobody seems to use for the cars anymore. They store all the stuff that they don't want or will never use again. But in the driveway, is there room for 2 cars?
Yes.
Because it's not going out into the sidewalk or to the street.
No, I
Okay.
think they're a 20-foot driveway.
Oh, okay.
out of this car.
Any questions? Ms. Flores? Yes, Ms. Soto?
Yes, what's the process for folks who would be interested in, and so now I'm getting not into the project, but more, I'm really curious about the execution of once the developments are built, or is it similar to the property out in Guadalupe where the families themselves helped in the construction in some way or another of the properties?
We are planning to do self-help construction. The one in Guadalupe, because it's financed by USDA, they actually require that the families participate in the construction and do 65% of the labor themselves, which usually ends up taking well more than a year. In this development, we're not sure exactly how much labor contribution we're going to have because we cannot use the USDA financing. There may be reasons to want to speed up the construction, especially if interest rates are going up, because we will want the families to stay qualified. We will have sweat equity component in the majority of the houses. It may not be 65%, it may be 50%. We'll see how that goes.
Great. And do you all, by any chance, just now curiosity, do you all partner with the Santa Barbara County Housing Trust Fund? Don't they provide
Down
down
assistance
payments?
loan.
Yes.
Full disclosure, I'm actually on the board of the Santa Barbara Housing Trust
Great.
Fund, yes.
Yeah.
And they do have some down payment assistance loans that the city has helped them obtain from time to time, and Cal Home is their current provider. Yes, we hope to use that source of funding, and we also have access to various down payment assistance. It will be a challenge with interest rates going up to keep the affordability, but that's what we do.
Any other questions? Let me, so I guess my question is, why do you want to why do you want smaller lots on this project?
To keep the homes more affordable. Land is a high cost towards the cost of the home. It's usually at least a third of the cost, if not more. So that's a few more homes that we can develop and keep the price a little more affordable. They're still quite large lots. They're 5,000 square foot lots. Many of your single-family lots in the city are more like a footprint with very small backyards, and we haven't gone that route. We feel that most of
And some of those are too small, in my
Yeah.
estimation, so.
most of our participants like to have some yard space, and so
Yeah.
that's what we provide.
Any other questions? None? Okay. So let's see, we can hear from the public. Are there any further questions from anyone on the council? Okay. Let's go ahead, open up the public hearing, and do we have any requests to speak or correspondence?
Madam Mayor, staff received one written correspondence from Ray Nieto expressing concerns over parking, safety, and property value. The correspondence was forwarded to council members, and hard copies have been provided at the dais this evening, and we have 3 requests to speak, and I don't see any hands up on Zoom right now.
Yeah, I know that we received emails probably in the past couple of days, and thank you to everyone who sent emails early, because when we get them at the dais right here tonight, we don't get a chance to read them, but if you send them early enough, we do get a chance to read them. So I think this is probably a first, that people are sending these out early. Okay, the public, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Mrs. Nieto? Followed by Robert Villadella, followed by Donna Villadella. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Madalena Nieto, and I'm a native of Santa Maria and a 25-year resident of Rolling Hills Estates. I'd like to first ask my wonderful community of neighbors to please stand up. Thank you. My biggest concern regarding people's self-help housing are parking, safety, and property values. Because of the close vicinity of PSHH, but people's self-help housing to our neighborhood, I would hate to see overflow parking spill, such as in the street of Montalvio Apartments. The proposed plans consist of very tight lots with limited parking, specifically the center island lots. Please take into consideration or account fire hydrants, garbage cans, driveways, and the likelihood, as Mayor Patino mentioned, there could be garages converted into 2 stories, and hardly nobody uses garages for parking anymore, as it is now at the People's Self-Help Housing on the northwest side of Santa Maria and Tanglewood. Second, the aesthetics of the proposed emergency gate is not acceptable. It provides no privacy or safety. A see-through gate is likely to attract illegal activity, loitering, teenagers jumping over the gate into our neighborhoods. We feel that a solid gate is the best way to cut back on noise, prevent trespassers, and criminal elements from gaining easy access. This will also maintain our property curb appeal and our property values. It is a proven fact that low-income housing lowers the property value of upper neighborhoods. Rolling Hills Estates, recently we lost 2 cul-de-sacs, mine included, and this lowered my property value by 20%. Additional losses that can be avoided within your power, such as improving our safety, our privacy, noise, and especially street parking, is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Viadella?
My name is Robert Viadella. I live on the corner of Diane and Koval Lane. And my concern is the same. We're talking about the vehicular gate. The gate, there's always been a gate there. It's been chain link with a lattice work that's been kind of threaded through the gate. So there's always been a barrier there where the drive-in couldn't see us and we couldn't see the drive-in. So basically, I'm concerned about the design of the gate, that it be a solid gate that's obviously strong with the Knox box on it too, but just the separation there where people's animals won't be slipping through the fence and coming into the neighborhood. I mean, we have dogs in our neighborhood too, that's not a problem. But we don't want any lost dogs from one place coming into ours where the people have to jump the fence to go chase their pets. So it's more of just a solid barrier like it is now. We've got the wall, we got a fence, and that's basically it. And another thing too, I tried to get on the website today to see about the staff report, and there was nothing that I could access. So I had no idea what was coming up for drawings here. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Donna Viadella?
Thank you, Steve. I just wanted to say that I too would like a solid, for the proposed emergency gate to be a solid metal privacy gate. Right now, we do have what Bob had described, lattice work, and that's been broken up several times and had to be called on to put it back and repair and stuff like that. So I'm just saying that it would be nice to have something that's just private and that works well with being a super duper emergency gate as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Flores, is that, can I ask you a question then? Are we going to have a solid gate there?
Yes.
Okay.
It's difficult to tell from the drawing, but it was
Okay.
intended that it's a solid with like metal trim. So I think that address, it'll be a better gate than is there right now.
Let me ask you something, because there's a lot of concern when people hear low-income housing and they figure they want their property values to go down. I understand that. How do you make sure that people are going to keep their property up in this area, that they're going to maintain it so that it doesn't turn into blight?
Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the property values, because when I saw the letter, I did some searches on the internet and I just put in affordable housing and property values. And 3 articles popped up right away, one from the National Association of Realtors, another from, I think, the Turner Institute, and then Trulia had an article. And in each case, they said that affordable housing actually raised the property values in the immediate area slightly, 0.06%, 0.17%. The study found that on average, the sales prices of homes nearby increased after affordable housing construction, with the biggest increase in homes closest to the project. The study also found a decrease in violent crimes, such as aggravated assaults, robberies, and the construction of affordable housing. So you can look into that research yourself, but the affordable housing doesn't bring down the property values, and I know the speaker indicated their value had dropped 20% since the Northman project began. And personally speaking, I think that was probably more an effect of the interest rates going from 3% to 7%, which that did have an effect on property values, but not 20%.
Okay, but you're not answering my question.
Yes. There will be an HOA association,
Okay?
and the board members will be the homeowners. I know that the reference has been made several times to the property we developed almost 35 years ago in the northern part of the city, and it's not the same homeowners that live there now. Many other developments in town that are that old, sometimes they tend to degrade, but there will be a homeowners association in this one. There was not one in the north one. That should help. Initially, we find our families have a lot of pride in their homes, and they do keep them up at least for the first 10 years. Our families stay in their homes much longer. They stay in their homes. I think it's like 90% of the homes built in the last 20 years are still occupied by the owners. It's when they're rented out that things don't go well, and that's true for all homes.
Yeah. So are you going to require that they stay in their home for X amount of years?
No, there's no specific requirement. That is what happens because, number one, many of the loans are affordable to the people, the initial home buyers. But if they sell, the home price will be what the market value is, and it may or may not be affordable. So our families tend to stay in the homes because they can't afford to move elsewhere sometimes unless their income's gone up. But there was no requirement they can sell immediately.
Can you require that they stay in their home for X amount of years?
No,
You can't?
we can't.
Okay.
A lender that, if you're giving something, you can take something, but other than that, you can't put terms on. That'd be against fair housing.
Oh, okay. Questions? Mr. Escobedo?
Yeah, and as it was mentioned before, the actual owners of these units will be part of the process of building it, right? So I think it would make sense that that's part of the reason why those initial owners stayed in there, because they're part of themselves, or their effort is also put in there.
They have tremendous pride in building the homes. So yeah, it's harder to sell something that you have a whole lot of pride in that you have built. They also know their neighbors better than if they just move into a house, so there's some camaraderie there. They may or may not be best friends, but they know and respect their neighbors. And that's, yeah, one of the reasons our families do stay in their homes longer.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question. On the HOA, how do you require, okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Smith buy this house, they're in it for 10 years, it's an HOA, and they sell it to Mr. Jones. How do they require that Mr. Jones stay in the HOA?
Oh, the HOA, there will be documents recorded.
okay.
There's a homeowner's agreement and the CC&Rs.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen places where it's not, that hasn't happened and that falls apart, yeah. Questions? Mr. Cordero?
Hi, Mayor, thank you. With reference to the gate, we heard several people talk about the gate. Has it always been your design to have a solid gate? For whatever the reason they have, if they want a solid gate, it would just...
We first showed the picture when the city asked us to a few meetings back, I think after the subdivision, but it's a black and white picture. So yes, we always did intend to have it solid after that point, but it was difficult to see that.
Okay, so maybe we're dealing with some old information or something for some of these people's concerns. The gate will be there.
It just wasn't clear in the pictures, and I think as one person indicated, I don't think the pictures that you received were in the staff report this time. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they weren't. I just saw the written staff report. That might have added some confusion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I will, I'll close the public hearing, bring this item back to the council. First, for consideration of approving the tentative track map and the plan development permit. I do, personally, I don't want to support a smaller lot. I think some of our projects, developments in Santa Maria, the lots are too small, but I am not going to support a smaller lot size.
The
Are these-
bedroom, the homes are 4 to 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Yes,
good size.
yes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move forward with making a motion to adopt a resolution approving the Skylight Homes vesting tentative track map.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Oh, can I do, I'll do both. The tentative track maps and, where am I? I lost my place.
Okay, because on the track map is where this would be made a smaller lot, right? Okay, so
The tentative-
do them separately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
do them separately. Okay, and
A motion?
second? Okay. And this is where we would make these lots smaller with that size house, and I am not supportive of this at all. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk? Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr.
The motion that is on the floor now,
Is
is
the-
that with the smaller lots or without?
With smaller lots.
With the small.
This is the tentative track map. Yes.
Okay, I would not support the smaller lots either. I think the smaller lots leaves something to be desired. I like the larger lot, and I think that we can cater to people that want to come in and live there to take positions like out at the base or things like that. So I would like to see the larger lots stay with it.
Well, not only that, but when you come to us with a project and you have certain things on there and we think, oh, that sounds really good. And then, to me, it's almost like a bait and switch for me. And then you come back and say, hey, we want to do it differently. I realize land is expensive. I don't think there's anything such as affordable housing, on the coast of California anyway. But I just don't like that. So, but that being said.
I do have a question.
Sure.
If the direction or the suggestion is to get bigger lots, what does that do to the project?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, most obviously it'll reduce the number of lots because the configuration is dependent on those smaller lots that are spread throughout the subdivision. How many lots would need to be removed is unknown at this point in time. There is, so it would force a redesign of the subdivision, a potential loss of at least probably 4 lots is just a quick guess.
And as the homes stand, there is enough room for the yard, or the front yard and a backyard, correct?
Correct. While the plan development permit is being part of the application request, the applicant is not requesting any modifications of development standards for the subdivision. This subdivision will meet the standard R1 setbacks, which is 10 feet and 5 feet on the side, 20-foot setback to the front, and these are single-story homes, so a 10-foot setback at the rear.
And the ratio is 5 parking spots per unit at this.
The realized ratio of parking, considering on-street parking, which the code does not credit, is approximate, well, it's more than 5 parking spaces per unit.
Plenty.
I can't remember how many things we've built in the past few years, and parking is always an issue, and then we think we have it done, and you go down to wherever we're building, look at the Azure Apartments, you go down there, and I thought maybe all those cars were parked there because people were still working on the apartments, and that was not the case. So it's bumper to bumper. So it's just like every street in town, and that's probably the same for you guys. I get the biggest complaint, probably. I just had 2 of them today. The parking in the neighborhoods is so bad. And when we go into a brand-new development and we have that issue just on the, just starting off, really bothers me. Because I've met with neighbors on Bradley Square, same thing, parking. And I understand why these people want that gate, because if they don't have it, you're going to have people coming over from the other side, parking there, and then being able to walk back. There are people in areas that have to park their cars. They can't even park in front of their house. They have to park it 2 blocks down, 3 blocks down. I can't imagine being a woman that works, say at night, you come home and you've got to walk three blocks in the dark to get to your house. And that's the situation we have in Santa Maria now, so it's really bad. Anyway.
So there's a motion and a second?
Yeah, I have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
No.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez?
Aye.
And Mayor Patino?
No. Okay, next resolution.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the Skylight Homes Plan Development Permit.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. And any further discussion?
Now, this one will be,
This is the permit for the planned development.
okay.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
No.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez?
Aye.
And Mayor Patino?
Aye. Next, we have a regular business item. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will hear a presentation from city staff on the public improvements being sought and development impacts expected to be generated by the proposed Blosser Ranch project.
Staff report is being made by Director of Recreation and Parks, Mr. Posada.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening again. This is an informational item update for you. Joining me tonight in the presentation will be various department directors, as the staff report says. Director Ng will be addressing the community development component. Fire Marshal Austin is here. Where's Fire Marshal Austin? Oh, there he is back there when we get to that segment. Director Fulgoni is here for Public Works questions, and while not included in there, of course, Director Springer is here just because he's a good guy. Good evening again, and what we wanted to do is take this opportunity to kind of bring the council up to speed on what's happening with the Blosser Ranch project over the 150 acres plus or minus that's located west of the Santa Maria Valley Railroad, south of Stoll and north of Battles Road, and of course east of Blosser. Several years ago, there was the Blosser Southeast Pacific Plan was created, and it created the ability for those areas of the city to develop. They included some of the areas that are there now, Westgate Ranch, the villages at Westgate, the Harvest Glen development. All those were part of that Southeast Pacific Plan. This is the last significant parcel of land in that project, and so we're really looking at how the impacts are going to move forward as far as the city is concerned. So just to recap the project quickly, there are 340 single-family homes planned, 320 accessory dwelling units, and 820 multifamily units that will compose the entire site. That's a total of 1,480 housing units. This is a unique project in that it's being proposed to be a rental project. So there'll be the ability for individuals to rent the multifamily units, and then they'll also be able to rent the homes, and they'll also be able to rent the ADUs. Part of the project is divided into the residential component and the commercial components of the project. And there's also there's also a school site project set aside of about 20 acres plus or minus, maybe closer to 23 acres. And there's also the 19-acre, again, plus or minus, site for the future sports complex. And in your packet, you have kind of an illustration of what the sports project is. So you can kind of orient yourself that it runs north and south between Stowell and Battles, parallel to the railroad tracks. At least in the time that I've been here, this is probably one of the largest residential developments that's happened in the city. There have been others, Bradley Square and some of those areas that have come along, but this is a significant project. What we wanted to do as staff was to take a minute and kind of bring you up to speed on some of the things that staff is looking at to make sure that we try to address the needs of not only the residents of the proposed project there, but also the residents of the city in general. So I'd like to hand off to Community Development Director Ng to talk a little bit about community development's side of that, and then I'll be back. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. City staff has been working with the applicant and the property owner on a specific plan for this area for many years. And the specific plan for Blossom Southeast and this particular area is approved. There's an approved specific plan. And this last remaining area bounded by Stoll, Battles, the railroad, and Blosser is thought to be of a community in a neighborhood with various uses, housing, single-family and multifamily housing, commercial, but also a school to serve the future residents, a park site, sports complex to serve future residents, and also it serves a larger population. And when this specific plan was in review, we discussed the ability to have additional housing, recognizing that housing was a need for the community. And so the single-family portions in particular, there was consideration given to smaller lot sizes and a higher density beyond what is typical for single-family neighborhoods. So in a typical single-family neighborhood, you may have four homes per acre, maybe 4.5, minimum lot size, 6,000 square feet. In the specific plan, we had a plan for a slightly higher density. Keep in mind that when we went through the planning process, we didn't have the ADU laws that we have in place now. So while there was some recognition that we were going to have slightly more homes to accommodate a higher number of housing units, and balancing that out with open space. Recognizing that if we were to include open space and a school in this overall community, that we were going to work with the property owner and the applicant on additional housing units. So in roughly 60 acres of single-family zone land, we have approximately up to 340 single-family lots. Typically, in a more traditional arrangement, that would take 80 acres instead of 60 acres. So, but that values is shifted to the single-family designated portions. So, also again with the ADUs, this is fairly recent legislation that has given property owners the ability to add another unit on their single-family lot. And that was not previously considered. We recognize that the state is essentially giving a free pass on this. But that doesn't mean that we don't plan for the impacts. There are impacts. And what also makes it difficult is the state makes it, we're not able to collect impact fees on the ADUs. But again, you're going to have future residents. We still have to plan for the impacts. They're going to use our parks. They're going to go to the schools. So it does, again, while it's permitted by state statute, we still have to consider the impacts. And so there is a tentative track map and a plan development permit that's moving through the planning process. The Planning Commission will get to see this soon. They have seen it through multiple study sessions. And what we are calling out are the impacts of the potential project. And certainly in light of the added ADUs, in light of the added density, there are some modifications to the development standards that the applicant is asking for. Some of it include reductions to the front yard landscaping requirement. The city's standard is minimum 50%. 50% of the front yard should be landscaped. But to accommodate driveways for the primary unit and a driveway for the accessory dwelling unit, that landscaping has to be reduced. Another modification would be setbacks, typical setbacks. For the side yard, we would have 5 feet on one side and 10 foot on the other side. This provides a separation between housing units to allow for privacy and comfort. So the modification would be a reduction in those side yard setbacks to accommodate a carport for the ADU. We recognize that the applicant is trying to provide parking for the ADU, and that's commendable, but it is with the modification to the typical development standards. There are also reductions in the standard street widths. Although these are private streets, they have widths that are less than what is the typical standard. Typical standard, curb to curb, usually there would be 2 travel lanes and parking on each side of the street adjacent to the curb. Many of these streets, there are some with parking on one side, but there are also some with no parking on either side. I recognize that there are some separate allotted parking areas, but the streets are not to the standard specifications. So again, there are, the applicant is going through the review process, and the planning commissioners have looked at the proposed design and architecture, and there's a lot of different things to consider. I've only called out the impacts of the proposed project, recognizing that we don't often have projects of this size and scope. So that concludes my portion of the presentation related to land use and development standards.
Any questions from the council? Mr. Ng, what is the standard from curb to curb then on a street?
It can either be 40 feet or 36 to 40 feet. So the travel lanes are usually 12 feet in width. And so if it's just the travel lanes, you have 24 feet. If you add the parking lanes, that's usually another 8 foot on either side.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Continuing on, the next section was talking about the Rec and Parks comments on the project. Our primary mission right now is to secure the 19-acre site for the park site, and we're working on that with the developer. We have met with the developer a few times, and they are very interested in having the park move forward. They've made that very clear. So they're supportive of that effort. What we're looking at is not only creating the sports complex, which would be 4 sports fields in the area, with the support of parking facilities, also constructing a neighborhood park component to that, where it would serve the residents of the development, typical playground, hard court areas, restrooms, and park type improvements on the site. So that would take up the 19 acres and have access from Stoll Road and Battles Road, and ultimately at a point in time from La Brea, which bisects the property. As you know, the city completed its leisure needs assessment, and we also, when we were working on the Mayor's Youth Task Force, one of the major demands really from the community was to be able to provide more sports facilities. So staff at the Rec and Parks Department took that as a mission. We applied several times to different state entities for funding. We were able to secure Prop 68 revenue of about $6.5 million for this project, almost 2 years ago now. We have been moving forward with the design. We've secured the Wallace Group as our architect for the project, and that's the concept that you see in your packet. We're limited by what we have, which is basically a really long rectangle, but for sports fields, it works out pretty well. Parking is another key issue that we look at, and again, with the design being a long rectangle, we're able to look at placing parking close to the fields, providing places for team warm-ups, and then also providing entertainment spaces, because typically no one just goes with one child to the game. Usually there's other kids and other schedules and times, so we're trying to provide a playground area for that to happen in too. The size of the project, as Mr. Ng described, typically would require about 22.5 acres of parkland being dedicated, and based on the population, average household size, those kinds of things are in there. The configuration that we're looking at right now is about 19.7 roughly, so a few acres less than the requirement. But it meets our design needs at this point in time. The big, again, item here is to get the land acquired, so we're continuing to work on that. Assistant City Manager Hackelman is helping us with that process. We have the $6.5 million state grant secured. We have a pledge from Santa Barbara County for $1.5 million. And we have the council's allocation of $1 million from Park Development Funds for that project. So it provides us roughly $8.5 million. We're in a constructability study right now with our landscape architect firm to try to tell us, is that the right amount of money? Are we going to need more? You might remember the last meeting I was at, there was a 16% construction cost index increase. We expect that's going to hit our prices. Our original submittal for the $6.5 million grant was almost 2 years ago, based on 3 years ago pricing. So, we do expect that there'll be some kind of an increase going on there. I'm available for any questions on the Rec and Park side of things before I hand it off to.
Any questions? I have one question, and on the side that borders the soccer fields, what is going to be between the soccer fields and the railroad tracks?
So right now, the design calls for either some kind of a berm with a wall. If Liberty School is a good example of what was done there. There was a berm created, and then on top of that berm, there was a fence. We're looking at something similar to that in the design to definitely discourage people from going across the railroad tracks that have to go to either end to cross.
I know this isn't Reading Railroad or anything, but it just really concerns me that people would be parking over on the street and then traverse across the railroad tracks. So.
Yes, and we did have a conversation with the railroad a couple of years ago, actually, and they approved of the concept that we presented to them at the time. That'll be a major concern in the design to make sure it's not a climbable fence, and it certainly is discouraging individuals from doing that. We're also hoping that we have enough parking on site. It's a matter of scheduling, games, times, and those kinds of things to make it manageable.
Any questions, Mr. Posada? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Fire Marshal Austin up to the podium if you would like to talk a little bit about the fire department packet. This section of the staff report was actually worked on by Chief Tuggle. So there are some fire concerns that we'd like to bring to your attention. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Posada. Madam Mayor, council members, as you can see in the report, we are recommending a new station or a new building be required of this project. We're strategically probably the new section of La Brea and Blosser. And the reason being is this development is in our District 2, which is served by Station 2 on Carmen Lane. Back when that station was built, it was strategically located and worked just fine. But since then, the city has grown south and west, and the infill has been significant. And based on our standards of cover assessment from 2021, this station is at capacity or often over capacity. And so this development is going to generate, based on current data, probably a little over 600 additional calls. And that's just, too much for a single engine station. The current station is in need of repairs, and again, like I said, it's not really strategically located anymore. By moving the station to this area, and then what we're recommending is it be built similar to Station 1 on Cook Street, and eventually become a dual unit station. So in essence, like what we did in District 1, is by adding that additional unit, you cut the call volume in half. So now you got 2 units that are within or under recognized standards. And so by doing this, we will be prepared for future growth, which is already occurring in that area, as we go out west and Area 9 and those kind of things start taking off. It also puts us within our 4-minute response time to our most westerly border, which is Black Road, which we're not currently meeting. It also solves the problem that I don't think I was even here a week, and Station 2 asked me, how can we fix the dead end at Carmen Lane and the railroad tracks? And I learned through the Utilities Commission, we can't fix it. And so by relocating the station to where we're recommending and requesting, it solves that problem, because now the station, or the engine can come out of that station and it either can go east and then north, or it can go, and south, or west and south. And now that roadblock is not a problem, where currently now they literally have to go down Carmen, go up Thornburg, get on Betaravia, all the way to Blosser, and then to come back all the way to Sonia, which is just on the other side of the railroad tracks. So that is why that portion of that is in this report. We recognize the future impacts of what's going to tax our current level of service. And so by placing this as part of the project, we can eliminate some of the current and near future problems, and then expand on the growth as the development continues. And then, I hope that's detailed enough, but I'm available for questions.
How much room does that fire station, how much room will it need?
We are recommending 2 to 3 acres.
2 to 3?
Depending on the design of the station, we could, 2 acres would probably be a minimum, especially when it eventually becomes a 2-unit house or station. Now I'm showing how old I am, calling it a house. But that is the minimum that we think we can design and function out of.
How soon do you need to build it?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
But truly, this is an amazing fire department, and this team here, they take on this kind of adversity, so they go above and beyond, and they handle the call volume with professionalism. I'm so impressed here. We just broke 12,000 calls for the first time in a year. Also, at the end of the year, we broke 1,200 calls for a single month for the first time. The very first month of the year, we're on track to do that again.
And how much does a new fire station cost?
Yeah, he's probably better.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Fulgoni. Yeah.
It, of course, depends on a lot of factors, but you could likely figure on that costing around $8 to $10 million.
Okay, Chief Clayton. You wrote our last grants, and you're still here. And that year, we got 2 of them. So this is easier. You just need 1. Oh, my gosh.
Well, I'd like to bring to your attention, though, that by relocating a station, we already have the staff and the engine to go into it, the equipment. So really, although that's a big ask, and we know, it's, in our opinion, more viable than adding a whole new station and company.
Any other questions? I'm asking all the questions. Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I asked yours?
No.
Go ahead, Mr.
I do
Cordero.
have another one. You said that the way across Carmen Lane to go all the way across Carmen Lane to Blosser, you said it can't.
Well,
What's the reason?
So what I learned is the Utilities Commission, who governs the railroad, they require no crossings within a mile of each other. So if we punch this crossing through, you would have to close another crossing, which would literally probably be Battles or something. So it doesn't make sense to do that. Not only that, but just the cost of designing to get over or maybe under the railroad is about 2 fire stations or more, so.
So it's not us.
No.
It's the railroad rules.
Yeah, or the Utilities Commission, who oversees railroad, called design and construction, but how they are designed.
I think we knew that Carmen Lane was eventually going to move. We knew we eventually had to move it. We just didn't know quite where, but we knew that was going to have to happen. Any other questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can close, and then we'll...
Yes.
Thank you, Jim. So again, the purpose today was just to kind of inform the council about the project and some of the things that staff is working on to try to be sure we're addressing the needs as they've developed as the project's moving forward. We appreciate the opportunity to bring it to you and share what's going on. We, again, are really hopeful that we can move forward with all components of the project. And if there's any questions for me, be happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posada. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak or written correspondence?
Madam Mayor, we have 1 request to speak and no hands up on Zoom.
Just 1, okay. And I see here, I have a note. Mrs. Tamura, you have slides, and it will exceed the 3 minutes. Is that okay with council? No? You're okay? You're okay with it? Okay.
So I was granted more than 3 minutes? Okay,
Three
thank
and a-
you very
three and a
much.
ha-
And
three
I
and a
will be
half.
very respectful of your time.
Thank you.
First of all, it's unfortunate that we did not know that this item was going to come up until yesterday. And so we probably should have had some opportunity to communicate with staff on this presentation, because I think there's some items, I make the analogy that this is like reading the last 2 pages of a 600-page novel. There's a lot of stuff that happened before this came up. And so what I wanted to do is just walk through what's happened over the last 30 years in less than 5 minutes. Go ahead to the next slide, please. The sphere of influence and annexation, I'm sorry, I got you. Okay, the sphere of influence and annexation study started in 1989 and took almost 4 years to be completed. It studied a whole number of areas, 3,000 acres, over 10,000 homes. The product was a master land use plan, the master EIR, a capital improvement plan, and the AB 1600 fees, which you've reviewed many times before. This is what the city of Santa Maria looked like in 1989. We basically referred to it as the hourglass, because it had a thin little strip in the middle and none of the roads were connecting except for Broadway. Blosser, Miller, College, Bradley did not connect. And so you can understand the need to fill in the hourglass. On the other side, you see the planning areas that were done, Area 1, 3, 5, 6, 9. These were all studied as part of that process. So I'm just going to walk through some of the elements of each one of these. This is Prescott Ranch. Prescott Ranch was designed with small lot plan development, which meant zero lot line, 4,000 square foot lots. That's what they look like. It had a school and a 5-acre park. It's really critical for you to know that when this first started, the agreement was that the Parks Department would include the playfields of the school districts as part of their inventory. What happened about 15 years ago is the school district fenced off all of their playfields. And that changed the dynamic of the number of acres that the city has to work with as far as recreational amenities, because you don't have access to those school fields. River Oaks. This is a 600-unit project. It has a school, a park with the basin pond feature, which is great. It's important to note with both of those two projects, there were no HOAs. The city is responsible for all of the streets, all of the landscaping, all of the infrastructure for those projects. And there's no clubhouse or any other community amenities other than what the city provides. And these were approved by the city. The Entrada Este project, which includes the Costco and the Lowe's and the Home Depot and all of those different products. These neighborhoods were designed with no neighborhood community buildings, no HOAs. The city is responsible for all of the streets and landscaping and maintenance. And the city had fire station number 4. And it was, as you can see, there's a little CF down at the bottom. Okay. That was already in the plan for the fire station. It was planned for that location. This is Blosser Southwest, which is completely built out. On the south side, we're regular single-family lot subdivision, no community park, or no community buildings, no HOA. Michael Tobes took over the north side, and he built projects like Lavinia, private streets, a community building, small narrow streets, which prevents parking on the street. Heritage, or Ranch, which is the one on the north side of Battles. Again, small lots, small streets, no parking in the streets. They have designated parking spaces. He also built Sienna and Villa del Sol. All of those have clubhouses, all of those have private streets, and all of those have HOAs or private maintenance that take a liability off of the city's books and are maintained by the homeowners. Blosser Southwest, or Southeast, the first neighborhood that was built there was Pacific Crest, St. Clair. You currently have the terraces being built, which now is referred to as Centennial Gardens. And that was a bonus density project because of some affordable units in that project. To the south was the Harvest Glen project, and that one took a little while to be built out because we hit the 2007 recession. But we have a school now and a park and amenities there. But all of those single-family homes, none of those neighborhoods have a clubhouse or amenities. There are no HOAs, and they're all public streets. So now we come to Blosser Southeast specific plan. This is the designation that was adopted. Again, the original plan was adopted in 1993, 30 years ago. We updated the specific plan 2 years ago, and the land use designation, that yellow, is 8 units per acre. That's a 5,000 square foot lot. That's what we're proposing on this project. We're not talking about 9,000 square foot or 10,000 square foot lots. These are what was proposed in the city of Santa Maria, and that's what was designed for this project. And it'd be about 480 units. So the question that comes up right now is, staff kind of gave you the bad news about this project. I'd like to give you some good news. I think it's important to balance the discussion. The The only public streets in this project are going to be La Brea and Western. They're going to improve the Battles Channel by undergrounding it and putting a linear park on top of it. There's going to be signals at Western and La Brea, and there's an added signal at Depot. Frontage improvements on Stoll and Blosser, similar to what is already existing along Blosser, will be completed on their side. They'll update the existing sewer trunk line through the project for the city to serve not only this project, but others in the area. Important to note, all interior roads are private and privately maintained, no maintenance cost to the city. Interior landscaping and trees maintained by the developer, no maintenance cost to the city. All 6 neighborhoods each include a clubhouse and a pool at no maintenance cost to the city. They are setting aside, as has been planned for the last 30 years, the land for the 20-acre junior high site and the 19-acre regional sports facility. This project will provide substantial developer fees. Our estimate right now is $55 million will be provided to the city and the school district for developer fees. Substantial property tax increase. The purchase of this property was $70 million. Before it was ag value. Now it was $70 million. That's just raw land. When you start putting the infrastructure in, it'll be reassessed. When you start building, it'll be reassessed. And you will see a substantial increase in property taxes coming to the schools in the city. We did have discussions with Chief Tuttle about, I'm going to say about August, about the fire station. The presentation that was provided here went far and beyond that discussion. So we were actually quite shocked about that request. So we will be spending a lot more time with the fire department talking about what they would like to see happen here. That's just a verbal summary you can read later. So this is the developer fee summary. Most of these projects will end up with about $75,000 per unit coming to the city with developer fees. And this is out of the housing element, so it's not like I just wrote this up. This is in the housing element update that's going on right now. The city has collected over $155 million over the last 30 years, and $75 million of that has already been allocated to projects or spent. One of the comments that was made in the staff report was that there's concerns about the architecture of the project. The first project that we brought forward is very similar to Pacific Crest. That was a very successful project, and we thought that was a great way to start because of the features that were provided in that project. The distinction of the different types of architecture, colors, elements, I think will make this a really nice project. The next project that they're designing, the next neighborhood, is going to be more of a agrarian look. And so each neighborhood will have a more distinctive style with them so that they really are neighborhoods, not a variety of units in each one. So we think that that is a much more successful way of establishing a neighborhood. And so we would like to, and we're really proud of what we're bringing forward. So I want to just spend one more minute going over the staff report. I would like to make some corrections. The first one starts off with the background of this project. This effort started in 1993. It wasn't just several years ago. This has been going on for a long time. The Aquistapache family has been involved in this for a long time, and they spent the time and money to go through the specific plan updates so that they had a good project to sell to a developer. That development company came in and looked at this site and said, this is a city that works with developers, it's a can-do attitude, and this is something that they want to be part of. The projects that are listed here on the middle of that paragraph, the Blosser Southwest Pacific Plan area includes Harvest Glen, Pacific Crest, St. Clair. The other neighborhoods are on the other side of the project. The number of units, I think we can have that discussion with Chung at another time for the build-out. The original project was approved for 1,190 units. We are adding more units to it, but it's not out of proportion with what other projects have done with increased bonus densities that have been allowed by state. It's important to note that the rental product is really important right now on 2 points. One of them is interest rates. For a $450,000 home at 7% interest rate, the house payment just went up $1,000 a month. That is substantially pushing a lot of people out of the housing market, and they need rental. They need rentals. And the other part of this is that we have a lot of exciting things happening in this region. Vandenberg Space Force Base, A.T. Stills, Marion Hospital, expansion, and most of these people are coming in for 2-year stints. They don't want to buy a house here. They want to be part of the community. They want to live in a home, and this is an opportunity to rent these homes. I think there's a number of beneficial impacts of this project. Ran through a couple of them. I think the most important thing is that the City of Santa Maria has approved a number of different types of projects. I think when you look at Lavinia and you look at the Heritage Project, they're very successful, and these were private streets, small, narrow streets, and they provided parking space, not on-street parking. And that's something that should be embraced, not discouraged or denigrated. We do have a lot of landscaping in our front yards. We are asking for a modification. We're at 41 to 45%. That's not a big difference. We like the architecture that was done in Pacific Crest, and that was the one that everybody encouraged us to go with, to start with this neighborhood. We are providing parking for the ADUs on site. This is what we saw in all of these neighborhoods that have parking all over the streets, is to get the parking off the street, put it in the yard. In regards to the Parks Department, we have Quimby fees, $3.6 million. We have $4 million of AB 1600 fees that this project's going to be paying for. That wasn't brought up by Alex. We have other Quimby fees that are in the coffers, and then along with the states. So we have almost $20 million for this project. And I think it's something that we should have opportunity to discuss and go over before we, and we're in negotiations, so it's stuff that we're still working with. And as I said earlier, the discussion with the fire department, kind of like it started at 1.5 acres, and it was just the land. This was the first time we saw it's 2.5 acres or 3 acres. It's the building, the land, the people, and even fire trucks. I don't know what else is going to be asked for. So we still have a lot of work to do with the fire department. The question is going to be, are they going to get rid of the other site? Are they going to sell it? Is that part of the package? Are we going to go for grants? We don't know. We didn't have a chance to have that dialogue, so we will keep working with them on it. This is a beneficial project to the city. Diversity of housing types and taking a lot of liability off of the books for the city, bringing in tax dollars, and I'm really excited about this project, and I hope that the city is too. And, this is 6 neighborhoods built over 8 years. It's not going to happen overnight. We have a lot of work to do, and we look forward to completing this specific plan, the last big specific plan in the city.
Thank you, Mrs. Tamuro.
Thank you for the time.
Any questions of Mrs. Tamuro? Mr. Cordero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When do you believe that they will complete the sports center in the process?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
when do you believe that they'll complete the sports center in the building process?
That's probably a question for Mr. Pistada. We're negotiating. We know how it's a high priority. And as far as completion of the project, that will be out in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the history lesson.
Thank you. We look forward to bringing forward the rest of the projects for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you Thursday, 2 o'clock.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, I know. That's it. You don't have any comments? Okay. So thank you for the report, and it'll be received and filed. Next item, under regular business, Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will entertain nominations for the position of Mayor Pro Tem for a one-year term.
Okay, and Mr. Stillwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So historically, the assignment of Mayor Pro Tem has been rotated amongst council members on an annual basis each calendar year. There are no formal rules, policies, or procedures regarding how the Mayor Pro Tem is selected, and the municipal code is silent on this, in this regard. The duties of Mayor Pro Tem include acting on behalf of the mayor in the mayor's absence. The Mayor Pro Tem presides at city council meetings when the mayor is absent. The Mayor Pro Tem also fills in for the mayor at various community functions and meetings when the mayor is unavailable. On December 21st, 2021, Mayor Patino nominated and the City Council ratified Councilmember Cordero to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the calendar year 2022, and it is now time for the mayor to consider nominating a council member to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for calendar year 2023. After Mayor Patino makes her nomination, a majority of the City Council will be required to ratify the appointment. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And I would like to, at this point, nominate Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez as Mayor Pro Tem for the 2023 calendar year. And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Patino?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo?
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilera Hernandez?
Aye.
And Councilmember Soto?
The next item will be a regular business item. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will confirm appointments to outside boards, committees requiring City Council representation.
Okay. And these are boards and committees that we are on, or, you know, that we serve as members that are within the county or within the city. And so I served on the SBCAG, APCD, which meets every other month. We meet in Santa Barbara in person. And whoever takes that also is APCD in the afternoon, so it's an all-day commitment. And 3CE, which is regarding the 3CE that we decided to be part of, which is our electric grid. For some reason, they want the mayor there, and I will continue to do that, but I know that Mr. Cordero has helped me out, and I didn't know if you wanted to continue in the future on that one.
Sure. It's your pleasure.
Okay, and the CCWA, you've been going to those meetings?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Springer then
Mr. Springer
goes with
and
you?
I-
Okay.
Mr. Springer and I are in constant contact when need be.
Okay. And here's where I'm confused, because I thought on the Home for Good, is that still doing the Home for Good, or are they doing the homeless task force in the county?
So there are two items. So this is the collaborative on homelessness, Home for Good, and that is still going on. It hasn't had regular meetings. And then the other one you may be alluding to, we received an email today on it, is the homeless roundtable for elected officials, something along those lines.
Yeah.
That Supervisor Hart is chairing it this year. Hartman, sorry.
Well, you know, I tuned into that meeting, and I won't say I was excoriated, but Hartman said, we haven't had representation from Santa Maria. So I,
That's not true.
have you been attending those?
I was all last year.
That's what I thought, but
I attend as well.
okay. And so I don't know, maybe we haven't been getting the notices at all? I don't know. But whether it's Home for Good or if it's the electeds with the homelessness, I think it should all be the same, rather than, do you want to still do that?
I mean, I can attend the meetings.
Okay. And did you still want to do that? Okay. And,
Can we get an email with all of our appointments after this meeting? Great.
and so, we have the airport board. And do you still want to do that, Ms. Soto? Sure. Ms. Jessica Bethel, you're on that? So then what about the schools? Now, I'm on LAFCO now, and I'm also on the California League of Cities Housing. So that's another commitment I have. And so I would just as soon give up the schools, the quarterly schools meeting. So is there someone here that wants to do the schools meeting? You will? Okay.
Good,
They beat,
good, I don't have to talk now.
then don't take a,
Yeah, I
you
don't wanna-
took a breath and you missed. Okay, and you still want to do that, Mr. Escobedo?
Yes.
Okay. And so if I could use Ms. Aguilera Hernandez for my alternate on my SBCAG and APCD, and you're aware that the time it takes.
It's an all-day thing.
Okay. Is there anything else I'm missing?
Just to clarify on the schools, it sounded like Councilmember Soto would be the primary and Councilmember Escobedo the alternate, or I wasn't sure that was clarified.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
You want to start in the morning? They have a meeting.
Did I mention what's the downtown redevelopment?
Wow, I
Deal.
got the e-invite for the quarterly schools meeting.
Yeah. And so you've been on,
8:30 a.m.
so you've been on the downtown, did you want to stay on that?
Yes.
Okay. And so, was Waterfield? Okay.
So the downtown has 2 council members, 2 planning commissioners, and a recreation parks commission. So we'll
Have you been on that one before?
Yeah,
the
for
planning?
planning commission. When do they meet?
As needed. So
As
they
needed.
are shepherding along. As the project progresses, the downtown committee meets.
Okay, is that it? Oh,
But, so the Investment Oversight Board meets it meets quarterly, but the schedule is flexible based on attendees. And it's a council member, the city attorney, the finance director, city manager, and then our investment oversight. And so it had been Councilmember Waterfield.
I will volunteer for that one.
okay, thank you. Then that covers all of them? Didn't miss any? Yeah, we got all that. Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any written comments or any requests to speak?
No, there are not.
Okay. So we got the assignments, and so I will make a motion to approve.
Mayor?
Oh, yes, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to request the possibility of being in the SBCAG commission due to my experience working with them since 2018 and getting all the already knowing through different projects working along and with them. I think that I can definitely help bring in have already created that relationship, and it can definitely bring value to the table and bring the interest of the city of Santa Maria as well.
Okay, and I've already given that to Mrs. Aguilera Hernandez. But it's a whole day commitment. So, and you're going to have to be, and I know your time is sort of limited, and because you'd have to be in Santa Barbara the whole day, because whoever does that does APCD. So it just sort of goes along with it. But
Could we alternate?
you can't, you can only have an alternate. Yeah, and that's why you can have the person and an alternate, so that you will get the same staff reports and the binders and everything that I get. And so it's really good to pay attention if you can go to the meetings or if you go on Zoom to watch the meetings, so that you stay in contact. And with you being on the Planning Commission is really helpful, because a lot of it is with our general plan amendment and also with any annexations that'll be coming up. So,
Aren't those public meetings?
yeah,
Yeah, so you can attend.
Yeah, you can attend.
As a community member.
yeah. Oh, yeah, they're all public. They're all Brown Act meetings. Okay, so I'll make the motion to approve my recommended assignments as read. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Patino?
Aye.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Escobedo?
Aye.
And Councilmember Aguilar Hernandez?
Aye.
Next item will be a report by City Manager, Mr. Stillwell.
Thank you, Mayor Patino, council members. The next meeting of the City Council is February 7th, and a number of items on that agenda. We do have a number of professional service agreements for the council to consider, a update, or a presentation, I should say, on the nonprofits and the CDBG accomplishments that council's been focusing funding on CDBG on youth, senior, and homeless, and we want to identify what those accomplishments, what that funding has accomplished. And then we'll bring forward the Betaravia Place public hearing, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. So oral reports of council members. So we start with you, Ms. Soto.
Trying to pull up my calendar. It's since the last meeting. On Wednesday, December 21st, I attended the Santa Maria Public Airport District meeting, and I believe that's it on reportable items, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On December 20th, I attended the Longest Night Homeless Day of Remembrance. And on the 23rd, I participated in the special holiday food distribution with the food bank.
Mr. Cordero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 21st, I did the Ben Hayes show. I did my last Ben Hayes show. Miss Maribel gets to do her first one in the morning.
I attended the show.
And I also attended on that date the longest night right out here in the courtyard of the City Hall to recognize the homeless people on the longest night of the year. On the 4th, I had a community board meeting for Communify, and things are moving along. They made some adjustments there, and things are moving along in Communify. On the 23rd, I also did the Walk of Life out here in the courtyard, and celebrated a little bit with Martin Luther King Day on the 16th. On the 23rd. I attended the promotional ceremony for 3 sergeants and 1 lateral entry at the Santa Maria Police Department. And I got to say, Mayor, that, I never thought I would have this happen, but I always looked at going and starting the police department as being a real honorable position. And now it's turned into something that is a little higher risk than what it used to be. And that's evident by all of the shootings and things that have been going on nationwide. And I just want to comment that I thought that some of your comments out there at the police department had a comforting effect, I think, on the family members, the parents, and perhaps even the young officers. But it kind of left them with the feeling, I think, that the people that the staff members in this city really care about the members of their police department. They're not just being cast aside and they're being supported. You know better than I what you were trying to say, and I thought that was came across very well. I also want to mention at this time what's been going on in the city with regard to the recent rain and the problems that we had, and I think the lack of problems. This all didn't just happen because of the men and women in this room that showed up that day on the rain and decided they were going to do these things. They've been preparing in their own way for all of their own responsibilities for weeks and months in some cases. So this didn't all just happen by accident because we were fortunate and just really nice people. It happened because of all the hard work and the leadership of everyone in this room that allowed us to get through this crisis with relative minor issues for us and our citizens. I know we talked a little bit earlier about a lot of the things that went wrong, but relatively speaking, very few comparing to some of our surrounding communities. And I think that's attributed to the city manager and every single department head that's in here that managed their people and kept them in line to get the work done and be prepared for the heavy rains that we did receive. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. December, and I want to thank you very much for sitting in for me on the December 20th meeting that I had a family emergency. And December 30th, I did the Rick Blameyer show, and he asks me to come on to tell him what's going on in the city, and I really appreciate that because people don't really want to come to our meetings, and I doubt if they really want to watch them that much, but at least they get a flavor of what's going on in our community and what we're doing. January 4th, I did the special SBCAG meeting, which we've been having a lot of the special meetings just to say that, and a lot of times people don't show up, we don't even have a quorum, but just to say that we can still meet in Zoom, and this will only go on for, I think, about another year or so that we'll be able to do that. Then attended the storm preparation legislative meeting. January 9th, I attended APCD Board of Directors special meeting. January 10th, attended the Recreation and Parks Commission meeting. On the 12th, I did the Cal Cities Policy Committee orientation, and which was a 3-hour meeting on the 12th, and a LAFCO meeting after that. On Saturday, I attended the Livable Communities, which is about a 2-hour meeting about housing in California. On Sunday, the 15th, I attended elected, again, on housing and what's going on in the whole state, and it's probably about 50, sometimes there's 50 people, sometimes there's 200 people that tune in on that meeting. Also did the Walk for Life. On the 16th, did the promotional ceremony at Santa Maria PD, which was really, it's really nice when they do these promotions and do pinnings because you see the officers there and with their families. And we had one officer say, I don't know if he said privilege, but he said it was great to work in Santa Maria where it felt like his fellow police officers were part of his family, and he felt that he was being supported by the city, and he liked working here. Tonight, I'm going to adjourn this meeting in the name of Richard Weldon. And Richard Weldon and the Weldon family was an old family here in town. And I just want to read you some of the obituary. Richard was born on June 28, 1928 in Santa Maria to Olga Giacomini and Thomas Weldon, Jr. He attended Miller and El Camino schools and graduated from Santa Maria High School in 1946. From there, he went to Stanford University, where he was a member of the varsity golf team, earning his letter and the Kappa Alpha fraternity. He graduated in 1950 and went on to Stanford Law School, where he graduated in 1953. While attending his friend Jack Adams' wedding, and Jack was a member of our city council years ago, he met Marilyn Myers, Jack's cousin. They married in 1955 and had 4 children. Upon passing the California bar, Dick went on to work as an attorney with his father. He loved his work as an attorney and was known for the late hours spent in the office. Though he loved law, and he was forced to retire at the age of 92 because of some medical issues. He was a lifelong member of St. Mary's Catholic Church, where he served as a lector for Sunday Mass, was active in the Santa Maria Elks Club, and served as a 34th Exalted Ruler, following in his father's footsteps. He briefly taught adult ed at Hancock College, was an arbitrator in the Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo Superior Court arbitration panels, served as president, treasurer, and director of the Northern Santa Barbara County Bar Association, served as president of the Southside Little League. He was a member of the Santa Maria Rotary Club, very generous with his time and speaking at multiple business functions throughout the Santa Maria Valley. He loved golfing, and he would play Saturday and at the country club. He insisted on walking the 18 holes and always carried his own clubs, even as long as his golfing buddies even though his golfing buddies passed him, he continued the Saturday tradition alone. On occasion, he shot his age or lower in his later years, which was quite a feat. He served as president of the Santa Maria Country Club for several years. One of his passions was stream fishing. He spent many summer weeks as a child at his Uncle Zan's Montana ranch fishing the local creek for rainbow trout. He carried this late into his adult years, taking the family on vacations to fish, sightsee, and enjoy the beautiful scenery and wildlife of Montana. And, you know, Dick was he was an avid collector, but such a historian. And if you ever saw him on the Historical Society when they did that Santa Maria Valley, he was so informative. And just off the top of his head, he could come up with all kinds of history here in the Santa Maria Valley. We'll miss his office visits. And if any of you had ever been in his office, his filing system was very unique. It would be stacks of paper against the wall.
Did you ever ask him anything that he was looking
I would
for?
never. No, that was his system. I wasn't going to intrude.
I was dealing with the Elks, and I asked him for some paperwork, and he said, "Oh yes." He says, "I have that right here."
He knows exactly where it
Two or
is.
three papers. Says, "Here it is, right here." And he knew where everything was on that desk. It looked like it was a mess to you and I.
And so tonight, I'd like to adjourn the meeting in honor of Richard Weldon. Thank you and good night.